I can see this backlash gaining momentum against Israel within the United States. I can see also just the desperation and the fear amongst the Zionists online now. They understand that they're coming after. It's from so many different vectors. I mean, if you talk about just what's Gaza, but a big thing is actually just the whole Charlie Kirk assassination. Candace has come out with so many different bombshells, and the Zionists aren't ever able to refute actually what she says. They will try, and then she brings receipts later. I don't know who killed Charlie Kirk, but evidence is building. Suspicion is building towards Israel. You know, Kash Patel shut down any investigations of a foreign actor that could be involved. You know, why do this? Clearly, the FBI is covering something up. But you know, Candace Owens is. She's just built this movement. I think she's going to get to the bottom of it. I mean, she found Brigitte Macron's wee. She's going to find who killed Charlie Kirk, right? So I mean, it's like, but this backlash. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked. Is coming, and I'm just worried about what it means, because I think this desperation that they're feeling, that they're being exposed, that you know things like AIPAC being a Zionist is becoming toxic in this country. What will happen? What can they do? Because we've talked about the Samson option before, but we were always talking about it in context of if there's a war between Iran and Israel, and then Israel is looking at an existential threat and their backs against the wall, that they would launch nukes, you know, that they would execute the Samson option in a war. But really, I think the destruction of Israel is probably more likely going to come from what's happening here in this country, this grassroots, this turn against Zionism. But you can't really execute the Samson option in that case, right? I mean, the problem here is that you're becoming hated, that people are recognizing what it is. I mean, you can't go up to someone and say, you know, love me and support me. If you don't, I'll blow you up. That doesn't work, right? So, but what can they do? The typical kind of threats, blackmails, what kind of backlash do you think the backlash is coming against Israel? But what tools other than these desperate propaganda attempts that are becoming more and more apparent to us, it's actually having the opposite effect. I mean, like I said, the reason that I ended up watching Candace Owens and the reason I ended up watching Nick Fuentes is because they were going after them so hard on Twitter that I said, okay, let me check this out. You know, I didn't really know who Nick Fuentes. I knew of him, but I didn't watch his stuff. Candace Owens isn't somebody that I normally watch or listen to, but because of this, you know, sure, audience is growing because of what the Zionists are doing, how hard they're saying, just shut up. So, but I'm a bit worried about, you know, what can Israel do? You know, because they're that crazy, that the fact that there is a Samson option and we know about it.
Right. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they have some sort of equivalent to the Samson option for what you're talking about. You know, this is something they're aware of. This, I think they understand very well that the success of the Greater Israel Project really depends on this unconditional support from the U.S. And they have worked assiduously over the decades to maintain that support and have been very successful. And now, well, you can see on one side, they're seeing the fruits of their success. They have a president that has, you know, given them so much, especially in his first term. But even in his second term, and, you know, he surrounded himself with the most extreme Zionists, the people that, again, you know, AIPAC and so on are very, very pleased with. So, you know, they look at the Trump administration, and by and large, they're very, very pleased. But they are aware of what's happening, you know, in American society, and yeah, I wonder, you know, what do they have? Do they have some sort of Samson option for America? Something that, like, if it gets really bad, we're going to have to do this or that. Who knows what they have planned. What they've done so far, you're right, has failed. And it seems like it's bound to fail more and more spectacularly as the months and years go on. I did see, you know, at least part of that interview with Nick Fuentes. So, you know, I knew really very little about this guy. But what I found, I think the most interesting part of the interview is the first part where he talks about how he came to his position vis-a-vis Israel. And he was just a freshman in college, a nobody. But he displayed some talent, and it was recognized by some of these people in the conservative movement that are very closely tied to the Zionists. And they thought, wow, he could be, you know, work with Ben Shapiro or something, because he was actually kind of echoing Ben Shapiro in so many ways. But then he questioned, it was actually a very honest question. He had no hostility towards Israel, but he was saying, like, why are we sending them? He at that point, he really signed up for the America First program. Why are we sending, if America goes first, why are we sending Israel $3.8 billion a year? He just asked that question. And he thought there was probably a good answer, because all the conservatives were behind it. So it must be, but he couldn't get an answer. And he kept on asking it. And then he was only still in his first year in college, a freshman. And Ben Shapiro actually came down on him, mentioned him by name, and said, "This man is an anti-Semite, and he needs to be basically expelled from polite society," which is just extraordinary. He says, like, he had 100 followers or something back then. He's like, what? And that's actually what woke him up and made him go down the rabbit hole. Say, hey, there's something wrong here. I'm the nobody. And Ben Shapiro actually went after him twice, mentioned him by name twice, and an effort, as I think Tucker Carlson put it, to strangle the baby in the cradle. He saw that this guy was an upcoming star. He could be. And so he was just going to crush him back then. And as both Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, agreed, is back then, the Ben Shapiros of the world actually had a lot more power. But you could see in this case, the tactic backfired. It always worked in the past. You could just destroy somebody. You affix the anti-Semite label to that person is destroyed. His career is over. And he, assumed, I think Ben Shapiro was quite confident, but he created a monster by doing that. And now we're seeing that replayed, more and more frequently, that whole people no longer are paying attention, or so many people have ceased to fear the anti-Semite label because it's been so greatly abused by the Zionists. And yeah, they don't seem to have any new tactic. It seems to be more of the same, and they're just shouting louder. Again, I think I talked about Mamdani. Now we're going to the other end of the political spectrum from Nick Fuentes, right? But something similar is taking place there. They went after him. They keep on trying, like they don't understand it's not working anymore. They keep on calling him an anti-Semite. He's an enemy of Israel, and that was supposed to end his career. It hasn't. It's actually made his career. So something has changed. They're losing control. It's clear. Even though they have at the top, the power structure, but they're losing control at the edges, and they clearly, I don't see what they can do. Again, they have made these moves to take TikTok and to influence X Twitter and all that kind of thing. And more than that, I think there was some, was it CNN or one of these legacy media outfits has also been taken under control.
Oh, right. It was a whole thing, like CBS, Paramount, and like it was,
yeah. Okay, right. Yeah. So
it was Barry Weiss. Yeah. And
right. Who again is a very avid. She's worked with dissidents in other areas, but when it comes to Israel, she's just a complete Zionist.
Right. I remember her saying some things that I respected in the past. I was like, oh yeah, but then it's just clear that she's an Israel firster, that her loyalties just lie with Israel over anything else.
Yeah. So I think we'll see more of that. That's, there's just efforts to take it over. I think in the end, that's just going to backfire, and it's going to lead to, like you say, a really severe backlash. I think if you're Jewish and you worry about the future of Jews in this world, I think you should be rooting very strongly for the Max Blumenthals of the world who are telling it as it is. I mean, it's just like you see that, okay, the more people like that you say, the more you understand, oh, this isn't all Jews. It's just a group of them, with their very powerful allies among Gentiles too. But unfortunately, like the things that they're doing, these are in the end not to the benefit of Jews around the world, but it's going to be very much the reverse. They are working hard to identify, because they're aligning themselves with this government in Israel that claims to be the representative of Jews, and that justifies everything they do in terms of their own Jewishness. And this is a recipe for disaster. And that's the way they're going. And let's just hope that they fail and that, again, the Max Blumenthal's of the world succeed, with their many, many allies on both the left and the right. Everybody from Zoran Mandani to Nick Fuentes. That's the whole spectrum, really.
Right. There's no way that's really outside those two extremes.
Right.
I feel like. Yeah, no, it was a very interesting interview that Tucker Carlson did with Nick Fuentes. But yeah, it just showed how they operate, that the Zionists, that they find these talents that will have political potential. And then they capture them and they bring them in. I mean, Candace Owens was the same thing, right? They did that she was part of Daily Wire, and then was in Turning Point USA, very good friends with Charlie Kirk. But then, there's a falling out. But that's, I think it was dangerous for the Zionists to take that approach because, they let them into their house. They understand how things work. They are aware, and now they have this huge audience and this backlash. So
yeah, well, in the past, it always worked. So something has changed. I think again, it's just that the dam has broken.
It's social media. It's free speech. That's the real thing.
Well, I think there are two things. It's like, okay, one reason that they weren't able, like Ben Shapiro was not able to destroy Nick Fuentes, is that there was the internet. And so Nick Fuentes, okay, he was part of some major media organizations, but they kicked him out because of pressure from the Zionists, basically. He just kept on calling up until finally he was expelled. But he could go, he just created his own channel. Now, maybe that's shut down, but he's found out. I'm not sure exactly I don't follow him, but I don't know what his situation is. But he's obviously found a platform. And you just couldn't do that in the past. That's a big part of it.
It was Rumble. But I mean, Rumble was like nothing, but he's got huge off of it. And now he's all over X. I mean, and the fact that Tucker platformed him as well, it just shows that he's becoming mainstream. Right. And then the Zionist response to this has just been so hysterical. Josh Hammer, this crazy, Israeli firster, wrote this op-ed piece. I forget where, in the Guardian or something, but just saying that, how Tucker Carlson needs to be neutralized and how we, just using that language, says he needs to be neutralized, and it just everywhere. All these Zionists saying how horrible it is. I mean, that's why I watched the interview, is because of this this response.
Yeah, right. They don't understand that. The old methods no longer work. They just they have a gun that they used to fire and always would kill, whoever the target was. But now
it's backfiring.
They fire it and it makes a bang, but that's all.
Right. I mean, it's just falling apart on so many things. Like I said, there's just so many rabbit holes to go down when you go here. Like whether it's Charlie Kirk, just the response from the Zionists, if it's Epstein, or if it's Gaza, or Nick Fuentes, AIPAC. There's just so much that it's just it's coming. I mean, one other thing I just want to throw in that I saw about Charlie Kirk is, he actually had a Catholic burial, but they kept it secret. This was just released earlier. He started going to mass. I guess he's talking to Candace Owens, was looking, he was leaving the evangelical church. He was not becoming a Christian Zionist. Just more and more evidence showing that he was moving. He was a Christian Zionist his whole life, but he died, not a Christian Zionist. I guess he wasn't technically Catholic, but he had a Catholic service and burial. That was clearly something that he wanted. But there was such an effort to keep him contained as a Zionist still, from this Charlie Kirk was the greatest friend to Israel. Christian Zionism is the greatest thing ever. That thing's blowing up.
Right. Well, I think, one thing that we can see is, I can see, again, I don't know about all of Nick Fuentes' views and whatever, because I've just heard about him. But from this one interview with Tucker Carlson, I can see that he's a highly intelligent person. That's obvious. And very independent minded. That's clear too. And I guess I'm sure it was true of Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens and these other people. Again, I haven't followed them closely, but this actually presents a problem, I think, to the Zionists. It's just that, they thought it was great. Hey, this is real talent. These guys are smart and articulate. Let's sign them up to our side. Now that's dangerous. You probably don't want to get the smart guys, because the smart guy and the independent ones, that because they'll stop and say, wait a second, and they'll start asking those questions that they're not supposed to ask. And then you can lose control of them, and you've helped to build them up, and then you got a monster on your hands, right? So it's going to force them to go to, frankly, stupid people, who are safe bets, but are just not going to do very much for them. I think that's what we're going to see. I think maybe that's true of that replacement that was selected for Charlie Kirk.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of weird. He just kind of disappeared. It was just a weird.
I guess
he
that didn't
showed
work
up
out,
and it just. Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes, but it does feel like the jig is up. And then when the jig is up, I'm just wondering what else can they do and what will they do? And the reason I brought it up is because I actually saw a clip that was kind of chilling, and it's amazing how open they were about it. So this was his name, what do I have it here? He's the former Mossad director. His name is Yossi Cohen. So former director of Mossad. Mm-hmm. He did this interview in London, and let me play it for you real quick.
Did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Surprises?
Yeah.
Like you mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many treated equipment do we have in these countries? You don't. I do.
You mean you mean booby-trapped equipment?
Not only booby-trapped.
And spying.
Manipulated equipment. I mean, you can't imagine the quantity. When I have invented that method, that was in 2002 to 2004.
The pager method.
The manipulated equipment method. Okay? We have already used it. Manipulated equipment. In Second Lebanon War, some of the elements were speaking to us.
How did you use it?
Want a glass of water?
We can get some brandy.
He can tell you, but he didn't.
I know, it's an early morning in London.
Yeah, there's actually some more to it as well, where he said that we have it in every country, basically all countries, everywhere, that we have this manipulated equipment. And it's just amazing to me that they'd be open about this, that he would just say that, what we did in Lebanon with these pagers, like can't even imagine every country, everywhere we were there. Could be booby trapped, your phone, your microwave, whatever it is. We're listening. We got so insidious, like insidious. Is that the right word?
Right. Yeah, insidious.
Wrong. Yeah. Insidious. Yeah. So it's just it just blows my mind that you would even be open saying that, and it is scary. What is that? If anything, what is that? Is that a veiled threat to the world?
Yeah. Well, I think it's this growing sense of impunity, which they really should try to rein in. But we've seen it on part of the Israelis. They used to be very, very careful about the kind of face that they presented to the world. And that seems to be gone. It's just like the mask is off and they don't care. They have this total sense of impunity. And, this should be ringing alarm bells all around the world. And if it leads to people being paranoid, they have a reason for being paranoid. Instead they hear about, the Russians are doing this and that. And all that is total nonsense. The anti-Russian paranoia is just is completely artificial. But I think we have a real justification for being paranoid about the Israelis. How couldn't you be after, interviews like that? So just to go back and maybe kind of tie this up, the Charlie Kirk assassination, I don't know who did it. I'll just say actually Nick Fuentes thinks that it just might be this Tyler Robinson, just a nihilistic individual. And that's possible. I know there are problems with the story, but we don't need to, that the official version. But that's possible. Maybe the Israelis had nothing to do with it. Maybe this plane from Egypt had nothing to do with it. I don't know. I really just don't know. But the fact that people are looking at all these possibilities and are wondering that the Israelis are doing it, well, I think that's justified. There's this paranoia is justified because of past Israeli actions and because of statements like that coming from the former intelligence chiefs there in Israel. Right.
If Candace Owens gets to the bottom of this, and I think she will, and if what a lot of people are thinking turns out to be true, that Israel was behind this, what do you think it will be? What will happen to this country?
Yeah, well, again, official America will do whatever they can to bury the story, to denigrate it. They'll go after Candace Owens in terrible ways. I think there's no question about that. But it's out there, right? We can't hide, just like we're saying, they can't really control the narrative the way, and it's, I don't know what it's going to lead to, but it's going to greatly intensify the trends that we're already seeing. The general skepticism and now even hostility towards Israel.
I still can't just get over how crazy this world is getting, Dad. Like, it's just so many, it's just insane stories happening all at once, and it's just unbelievable. With Israel, the Zionists, Russia, Ukraine, with China, the trade war, and just Trump being Trump. It's just, Epstein. Oh my goodness! I feel like next year it's going to blow up. Yeah.
I just was saying, you said the trade war. I think you said the sword of Damascene. I should have said the sword of Damocles.
Damocles, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I heard it, but I didn't want to stop your flow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Anyway, I misspoke there, but that's very minor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can end it there, Dad. Is there anything else you want to say? Any?
No. I think we've covered quite a bit of ground today.
Okay. Great. Okay. All right. Have a good rest of your day and a great weekend.
Okay, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.